In our previous session, we have talked about how to fetch the data using UIRecord API, and in this session, we are going to go with the creation of the record. So to create a record, we have this createRecord method, and first thing is we have to import it, and we can import it from this little snippet that we have to create records. So here, earlier we have seen with getRecord method and getRecords method that we need wire decorator to use them. So wire is solely to fetch the data either using Apex or UIRecord API or the GraphQL. So wire can only use to fetch the data. Wire can never be used to manipulate the data. Till date, wire cannot be used to manipulate the data. So for manipulation, like we have these methods, create record, update and delete record, and all three of them returns a promise object. So in one of our previous sessions, I have explained like how to consume promise in JavaScript. In one of the previous session where I was explaining the imperative way of calling Apex, I have also explained how to consume promise. So to consume promise, there are two ways. I will just quickly highlight. One of the ways is to use then catch block, and the other way is to use the async await one. So then catch block you will mostly see on the documentation, but I prefer to use async await because to me this looks more cleaner and easy to use. But it's all up to you. If you find then catch block more helpful, then you can go with then catch block. Both are the same thing, both consume the promise. So here, like, since we are not designing or developing any UI, so I will just explain create record in the JavaScript side only. So I'm not going to design any UI right now. So here, like usually we call create record on a button click on some other action on the page, but currently since we are not designing or developing any UI, we are gonna go with the creating a record on the page load. Usually we won't do that, but right now we are doing it because it's not, we have not yet started with the designing UI. So here one thing is like we have imported the create record, and then on the page load we want to call it, and we can have this connected callback here. I have already explained about LWC hooks, and do check that out if you haven't done it already, or if you are not aware of what is connected callback. And right now, like on the connected callback, we have to just call this create record, and in the create record we have to pass one object. So before we pass that object, what we need to do is we have to add two import statements, and those going to be the name of the object and name of the fields that we are going to populate. So here I will mention a name as contact, sorry about that, contact object, and here it is going to be like this. And the next thing is going to be the field name. T is missing. So here last name is the required field. So I'm going to go with the last name field here. Contact dot, I would give name, last name. It should be dot. Okay, so if we want to populate more field while inserting that, we can import those fields. So here this is going, we have to pass one object, and I'm going to call this object as record input, and it is just a noun, and it could be anything, but I'm going to go with the record input. So here inside the object, these are not nouns, these has to be exactly matched, and first one is the API name, and API name is going to be contact. So we have two ways to do this, like either we can just hard code it contact here, or we can use this import statement, or either we can go like this, or we can mention it like this, and then we'll go with object API name. So it's better to use it this way instead of hard coding it, because currently it doesn't make any difference. Either we could go both the things eventually will assign contact here. But it comes super helpful when we are working on the namespace.org. So we can write it this way, and this will take care the namespace here. So here it will add namespace automatically if we are using this import statement. So this is super helpful when it comes to the package development or working on the namespace.orgs. So currently, like, it doesn't make any difference, but I'm still gonna go with the import statement because it's a best practice to use it this way. And the second one is going to be the fields that we want to populate when we are inserting the record. And for that, I'm going to create another constant. I'm going to give this name fields, and then here in the fields, first value going to be name of the field that we want to populate. In our case, it is the last name. It is similar to object. Either we can mention a string like this, and then I'm going to give the name is learn create record UI API. So this is the best name that I could think of as of now, and it's a similar kind of a thing. Either we can just hard code it last name, or we can use this import statement here. So if I just copy and pasted it here like this is not gonna work because it is still dim here, which means it's not being used. So here, this is a default behavior of JavaScript object. If we mention any string here, it is gonna treat this as a string, even though I have not mentioned any single quotes or double quotes, but still it is gonna treat it as I have mentioned single quotes. We don't want to do that. We want to assign whatever the value this variable holds. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to bring this square brackets. This is an array like square brackets, but trust me, it has nothing to do with arrays here. So this is a syntax that we use to assign object keys dynamically. So whatever the value this variable holds would become a key of this object. And this imported statement is also an object in the contact object. It comes with other information also, but we are just interested in its API name. So we are gonna go with field API name. So in object it is object API name, but in field it's a field API name. And the next thing is here we have to assign second key, which is going to be like this. And here this is a syntactic sugar. If the variable name is same as the key name, then we don't need to mention it like this. We can just get rid of it, and we can just mention this single word here. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna create key as the name of this variable, and the value is going to be the actual value that this variable holds. So if we use like this or use it like this, it's the same thing. So it's better to not use it because it's the same thing. So right now we have prepared our object and we can pass it like this. And I have already explained the two ways of consuming promise in one of our previous sessions, but I'll just give you a quick view of like then block. Here we can go result and then this arrow method, and then we can just console log the result here like this. And then in the next line we can have a catch block and we can just print the error. So this is a one way to consume a promise. So I'm not gonna go that deep into the then catch block, what is happening here. Usually I prefer to go with the async await keyword. That is more cleaner approach to me here. So for that we have to mention async to the method where we are calling this promise thingy here. So what we need to do is I'm going to create a constant, and I'll give it a name contact and equals to. And now if I don't use await keyword, this variable is going to hold the promise, but we don't want the promise to assign here. We want the actual data coming from the promise here. So we'll add await keyword here, and then we console log contact and then assign, and then we're gonna read the whole contact object here. And since like then catch has its own catch, but here for async await we don't have its own way of catching the exceptions. So for that we have to rely on the try catch. So here we'll put this in the try block, and then we can have our catch method like this, and then we'll have this parameter as error, and then we can just log the, instead of log I'll use console error. So if there is any error during this processing, and it'll console log it. So now let me deploy this, and hopefully it should insert a contact when the page loads. So for that what we are gonna do is we'll click on this update preview, and now the page is loading. Okay, so here we got this information all about contact object. We have all the fields here, like everything, all the fields. It returned contact record, whole record with all the fields. So we don't need all the fields. We have this just ID, and we can just paste it here and then hit enter. So this is the contact record that we have inserted using this createRecord API. So this is all about creating record using UI record API. So if you have any question, any confusion, any query or any suggestions, please do mention in the comment section, and I will I'll respond to it as soon as I can. So stay tuned for the next APIs, which is update and delete record in UI record API. So thank you so much.